Good morning. Oh, it is so good to see you all. I've only been out of the pulpit for 1 week, but it seems like longer. It is wonderful to see you. Welcome here in the sanctuary and also online in YouTube land to the Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg. We're on the unceded ancestral lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole Native people, and my name is Ben Atherton-Zeman. I'm the minister here. Several of us this summer represented UU St. Pete at this year's General Assembly, sponsored by the Unitarian Universalist Association, or UUA. It took place in Pittsburgh, so you'll be hearing from Cynthia Patterson, there's Cynthia, from Karen Cole, there's Karen Cole, and from today's worship associate, John Motter.
Thanks, Ben, and good morning, everyone. If you want a church where you can bring your whole self, your full identity, and your questioning mind, a church that works for social justice and the inclusion of all who are marginalized, a church that centers itself in the spirit of love, I've got good news for you. You may have found your church home.
Thanks, Sean. In addition to these four of us who are talking, we have Deb, who's going to be leading hymns and who brought her recorder. I'm really excited for that. And of course, Aaron on piano and ending on organ. We have one announcement today, and that is our amazing Joe. If you could raise your hand and say hi, Joe. Joe has donated a large television to the UU St. Pete. Thank you, Joe. And he was just pointing to Ann. So Joe and Ann are going to move the TV from his house here after the worship service. They already have one strong person, Robert, who's going to help them, and they need a second strong person to help them move this TV after worship. So if anyone wants to raise their hand and is willing to, thank you. You got one in the back, we'd see him. All right, great, thanks, man. Please read the rest of your announcements in the order of service, or they are also in our weekly newsletter.
As Unitarian Universalists, we are a people of diverse beliefs, but we share a common faith, a faith that every person is worthy of love, that what we do in this world matters, and that we are connected to one another and to the earth. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here.
And we want to give a special welcome to any newcomers, and I've chatted with a couple of you earlier. If you are new or fairly new, you want to give a wave so we can make sure we greet the people who are waving a little more enthusiasm. Now, usually at this point, I would bring a microphone to those who are willing to introduce themselves, but remember I said 4 speakers, so we're going to wait a week to do that. Hopefully you'll all be back, and maybe some of you will be willing to share a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for silencing your cell phones. Regarding masks, we encourage you to wear one as you are comfortable. Let's take a moment to greet our neighbor, and remember to get consent if you're going to hug them or shake their hand. This morning, roughly 1,600 members of the Church of the Larger Fellowship are waking up to another day of incarceration. These individuals are particularly vulnerable to isolation and loneliness. As we light our chalice, hold tight to the virtual connection that we share. In doing so, we recognize their inherent worth and dignity. As Rita and Andrew lights our chalice, please give voice to our shared connections by saying our covenant together. The words can be found in your program and online in the text chat. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now please rise as you are willing and able for our first hymn, I Sought the Woods in Summer. It's hymn number 328 in the gray hymnal. And thank you, Deb, for leading our hymns today and singing our anthem.
So this is kind of a, can you hear me? Go ahead. This is kind of a new song, so I'm going to play it through once on my recorder, and then we'll start in.
I sought the woods in summer when
every twig was green, the rootless boughs were tender, and buds were pink between. Light-fingered aspens trembled in fitful sun and shade, and daffodils were golden, and every starry glade. How frail a thing is beauty, I said when every breath she gives the vagrant summer, but swifter woos her death. For this the stardust troubles, for this have ages rolled, to deck the wood for bridal and slay her with the cold. I sought the wood in winter when every leaf was dead. Behind the wind-whipped branches the winter sun was red. The birch is white and slender, in breathless marble stood. The brook, a white immortal, slept silent in the wood. How sure a thing is beauty, I cried, no bolts can slay, nor wave nor shock despoil her, nor ravishers dismay. The granite hills are slighter, the sea more like to fail. Behind the rose the planet, the law behind the veil.
You may be seated.
Good morning again. So I'm Cynthia Patterson. I've been we're even to Julie. I've been a member here since 2012, and since 2015 I've been leading the Sunday morning book discussion group, which is entering its 9th season starting September the 3rd. Just a little teaser. We're going to be reading this book, Citizen, upon which Karen Cole's message today is going to be based. I hope that interests you in that process. Well, you do know that Unitarian Universalism exists outside of St. Petersburg, right? We aren't just it. While some of us have belonged to other UU churches, most UUs are come-outers. That is, they have been coming to Unitarian Universalism from other religious traditions or from previously no church experience at all. And you may have heard that UUSP has a CUPS group. CUPS stands for Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans. And some of you may be involved with Green Sanctuary, which is a UUA program to recognize churches working toward climate justice. But there is so much more to Unitarian Universalism worldwide than just these two groups. And a great place to learn about other UU groups is at General Assembly. So I just returned from my 6th General Assembly, and it was my 5th serving as a delegate from UUSP. When you're there, it can seem like an endless alphabet soup of groups, but each one that appears there has its own mission and its own vision, and you can get involved with them because most have an online presence and virtual presence as well. There is ARE, those are the Allies for Racial Justice. There is DRUM, Diverse and Revolutionary UU Multicultural Ministries. There is Equal Access, UUs living with disabilities and their families. For those of you who like crowdsourcing, there is Faithify, which is a crowdsource support specifically for Unitarian projects everywhere. There's Side with Love, and it is more than just a slogan on a t-shirt. There is a whole group of folks working on that. And of course, most UU affinity groups begin with Unitarian Universalists something something, and then they add on the focus. UU Women's Federation, for example, celebrated this year its 60th anniversary. UU RISE, R-I-S-E, is Unitarian Universalist Refugee and Immigrant Services and Education. Then there's UUSJ, one of my favorites, UUs for Social Justice. Some other newer affinity groups, and I love these, UUAM, Unitarian Universalist Animal Ministries, and I think that Kelly's involved with that one. There's also one called UU Fat Liberation. And if you still have strong ties to your original faith tradition, you might want to participate in UUCF, which is Unitarian Universalist Christian Fellowship, or UUJA, Unitarian Universalists for Jewish Awareness. And there are also groups for UU Hindus and UU Muslims. Or, if you prefer to explore on your own, UUs have their own bookstore. It's where we get most of the books that we read on Sunday morning. It's called In Spirit. Books specifically by and for Unitarian Universalists. It's a big UU world out there, and I hope you'll explore. I belong to many other groups that meet virtually, and if you'd like to hear about them, please see me during the coffee hour. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. I've been to the actual physical bookstore in Boston. It is lovely. Now we come to the time in our worship for joys, sorrows, and concerns. I have one card that's been written on and handed up, and here's another one maybe. No, Kelly's doing the stones. Kelly will be putting in the stones. Kelly was one of our delegates to General Assembly. Here comes a card. You have cards in front of you. If you like, you could quickly fill one out, but most of you have sent your joys and your sorrows to me during the week via email or on our Facebook group. I have not forgotten you in YouTube Live land. You are not maybe here physically, but your presence is still felt. So please put your joys and your sorrows and your concerns into the text chat. Right now, Kelly will place a stone in the water for each one that was submitted this week.
First, a stone of concern from Janet Roeder. Janet's daughter, Deb, is suffering from acute depression and will spend the next month in an acute care outpatient facility in Aurora, Colorado. Her recent stay in a resident acute care facility did not resolve the depression. She suffers from bipolar disorder and has recently been suicidal.
And then a stone of concern also from Janet Roeder, hoping that Janet's upcoming heart procedure will resolve the blockage in her aorta. And then finally, a third stone, this one of joy from Janet, since Janet's son and daughter-in-law will be here for the procedure and for the recovery.
A stone of concern from Aaron Cassette, who asked us to please pray for all teachers and students for a safe new school year, free from violence and ignorance of the state government.
A stone of sorrow from my friend Stacy Moniz. Stacy's a native Hawaiian who lives with her family on the island of Maui. Lucinda and I have known her for years and have had the opportunity to visit her and do some work there on that island. And as many of you know, wildfires have devastated the island, particularly the town of Lahaina that we visited and that some of you told me you visited. She asks that we please send love and prayers to her, her family, and to this island community. In particular, please pray for rain.
A stone of concern for the staff and congregants who are out sick today. Please send love and healing energy. We hope they feel better soon.
And a similar card from Joe Wedman, a stone of concern. Gwen is not here today because she has COVID and says she wants others to know so they might be careful.
Stone of joy from Ryan Jensen. Today is his daughter Abby's 7th birthday, so happy birthday to her.
Hey, happy birthday.
And a stone of plea from Susan Gore. Gecko Queen voting ends on Monday the 14th. If you want me to highlight UUSP values in Gulfport for the coming year, please vote. You don't have to live in Gulfport to vote, but you do need to do it in person. See Susan Gore for details. And Susan, are you?
Good luck, Susan.
And that's it.
Let's bring to our mind and hold close to our hearts Janet Roeder, her daughter Deb, my friend Stacy, and her family and the community in Maui. Those staff and congregants, including Gwen, who are not here because they're not feeling well. Aaron and all teachers, all students, all those unknown and known to us who are facing challenges and facing health concerns.
May our hearts not become calloused by the never-ending incidences of oppression and hatred that so many face each day.
Rather, may we keep our hearts open to the positive efforts of so many people causing good trouble in the world.
May we have the strength to demand and gain the right for all people to have a safe place to sleep, health care to keep them strong, and the knowledge that their lives do matter.
The struggle is taking longer than it should, but we will get there if we continue to fight for what we all know is right.
May all of us find a comforting and compassionate presence in the warmth of fellowship and community.
And Kelly, let's place one final stone for those joys and sorrows that remain in our hearts, perhaps too tender to yet be spoken out loud. And let's take about a minute of silence together. The mystery is that we are connected even when we feel apart. So, let's rejoice in our beloved community that makes of the many one. So may it be.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion.
Good morning. My name is Karen Cole, and my husband Dave and I joined this congregation in January of 2004. This year was my 4th General Assembly. The first was at Fort Lauderdale several years ago with about 10 others from this congregation. The second was in Salt Lake City, and I think Dave and I were the only ones attending from UU St. Pete. I remember a very beautiful city, but hearing about the strong impact and influence of the Mormons across all of the Western states. The third was in Charlotte, North Carolina, with once again a strong showing from UU St. Pete. In June, 7 of us traveled to Pittsburgh. My purpose in going was to learn how various congregations were implementing the 8th principle. I was not a delegate, so I had more time to pick and choose services and webinars. Our delegates, by the way, had a very rigorous schedule, conducting the business of the denomination while representing UUSP's interests and needs. Your delegates were Ellen Hayes, John Motter, Cynthia Patterson, and Kelly Patton. Please thank them for their service when you see them. I have 2 main takeaways from this year's General Assembly. The first was a marked change in the mood or tone or culture of our denomination, and I liked it. The second was a webinar called Disrupting Church that several of us attended and others have since viewed and discussed, including the racial justice team and the Sunday morning discussion group. So first, about the changed culture. The services reinforced an openness to possibilities, loving support, and challenges to take risks, to be recognized as a loving presence in the greater world. The music and style of services varied to attract differing audiences. Similar themes and dynamics carried over to most of the webinars, and they were marked by a very open sharing about what worked and what did not work within congregations on their journeys, all being very open about mistakes and what they had learned. For me, past GAs had more of a tone. Quote, "This is what our congregation did, and aren't we great?" This GA focused on, how can we help you? I sensed a culture of working together, far less structure and rules, but rather focused on what's the right thing to do, with emphasis on building a very diverse community. And I felt, this is my tribe. I belong here. Since change starts, especially cultural change starts, at the top, I give full credit to our outgoing UUA president, Reverend Dr. Frederick Gray. She's done an excellent job in very trying times. My second takeaway came from the webinar, Disrupting Church. There were many gems of advice, but the most meaningful I want to share today is about the culture of a congregation. As I describe the 3 models, please reflect on what is ours, and most importantly, what do we want to become? 3 models were discussed. The first was the subject model, where the minister is the monarch and the congregants do what they're told. Makes me think of my Catholic upbringing. The second was consumer. Congregants define their needs and wants, and it's up to leadership and minister to meet those needs. Since there can be conflicting needs, this can get dicey. Also, where's the buy-in if we have all kinds of needs all over the place, but no bringing them together? And lastly was the citizen model. It's really an evolution, I think, of shared ministry. We all share the responsibility for the success of this congregation. If there's something we think should be changed or that we do not understand, we should engage in dialogue with each other, with the applicable folks, and coming up with a range of solutions, or agree to perhaps take responsibility for part of the solution. This was a memorable General Assembly for me. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much, Karen. Now please rise as we are willing and able for our second hymn, With Heart and Mind. It's number 300 in the gray hymnal.
With heart and mind and voice and hand, may we this time and place transcend, to make our purpose understood, a mortal search for mortal good, a firm commitment to the goal of justice, freedom, peace for all. A mind that's free to seek the truth, a mind that's free in age and youth, to choose a path no threat impedes, wherever light of conscience leads. Our Lord has died so we could be a church where every mind is free. A heart that's kind, a heart whose search makes love the spirit of our church, where we can grow and each one's gift is sanctified and spirits lift, where every door is open wide for all who choose to step inside.
May be seated.
I didn't introduce myself correctly at the beginning of the service. I'm John Motter, an almost 62-year-old cisgender gay white man. I've got salt and pepper hair, beard, and mustache. I've got black framed glasses, and I'm wearing a navy blue, gray, and teal plaid shirt, nutmeg-colored pants, according to the online place I bought them from, and bright teal-colored shoes. I use he, him, his pronouns. This is similar to the way every speaker at GA introduced themselves. Why, you may ask? It's a way to be more welcoming and inclusive, a description of myself for those who are visually impaired, recognition of race, age, gender, identity, sexual orientation, and more. All those things that become the isms in our world. It may seem like overkill, but it's really not. Especially if you're a person sitting in the sanctuary today feeling like you are the only one here that is blank. It is one very small way in which we can begin to lean into our newly adopted 8th principle. It was really wonderful to see the breadth of diversity at GA. Yes, the crowd was still predominantly white, but the atmosphere was one of welcoming in with intention. It was apparent in the music played, the speakers on the stage, and the range of session topics, and most certainly the business discussed and voted on by the delegates. At the service of the living tradition, my heart was warmed to see who was introduced as new ministers. About 80 ministers walked or rolled across the stage. About 80% were women, and 20% were BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color. We elected a new board president, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt. She describes herself as an Afro-Latinx, cisgender, queer, fat woman. She's impressive. She describes the need for risk-taking as we navigate the world we are facing today. And she asks for grace. She said, quote, "Risk requires a willingness to fail. Please let us fail with you so that we can hold that risk together, so we can find new ways to actually meet the needs of the day. So my commitment to you is to hold that innovation as the precious gift that it is, and to share our resources so we can do that risk together," unquote. And next we have our anthem from Todd and Sam.
Hi there, I'm Sam.
And I'm Todd. And this is a song about people from, different worlds, perhaps different congregations, who were pretending to be other people, other congregations, and are now learning to be much more genuine with each other. Lift up your head, wash off your mascara. Here, take my Kleenex, wipe that lipstick away. Show me your face, clean as the morning. I know things were bad, but now they're okay. Suddenly Seymour is standing beside you. You don't need no makeup, don't have to pretend. Suddenly Seymour is here to provide you sweet understanding. Seymour's your friend.
Treated me kindly. Daddy left early. Mama was poor. I'd meet a man and I'd follow him blindly. He'd snap his fingers. Me, I'd say sure. Suddenly Seymour is standing beside me. He don't give me orders. He don't condescend. Suddenly Seymour is here to provide me with sweet understanding. Seymour's my
Forever. Tell me the bad times are clean washed away.
Please understand that it's still strange and frightening for losers like I've been. It's so hard to say. Suddenly Seymour, he purified me.
He purified you.
Suddenly Seymour, show me I can. I ought to be more.
The girl who's inside you with sweet understanding.
With sweet understanding.
With sweet understanding.
With sweet understanding.
With sweet understanding. Seymour's my
Thank you, Sam. So good to have you back. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, John. Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. It's Aaron, everyone. Thank you, Aaron. I was thanking Karen, though, because I appreciate Karen's words. I appreciate Cynthia's words. I appreciate John's words. I'm going to follow John's leadership, as I so often do, and introduce myself with a visual description for the blind and visually impaired. My name is, once again, Ben Atherton-Zeman. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a 57-year-old bisexual white cisgender man with short yet dashing salt and pepper hair. More salt than pepper, really. I'm wearing a light purple button-down shirt and a yellow UUA stole with a rainbow on it that has a heart and the words "Side with Love" embroidered on it. I'm also wearing a name tag looped around my neck that has 10 multicolored ribbons stuck to the bottom. Now, this is the name tag that we all received, those of us who were at General Assembly, and it has the main schedule printed on the back of it, which is nice for neurodivergent people like me who are always wondering what's next. I collected and added these ribbons below my name. They all have little adhesive, and some of you who've been to General Assemblies are familiar with the ribbons. I see Ann nodding. And they all came from different vendor tables from many of these groups that Cynthia mentioned. So mine in particular say things like UU Women's Federation, Beloved Conversations Alum, UU Fat Liberation, and Collective Liberation is my jam. Now, there are a lot of young people at General Assembly, or GA. I'm going to say GA a lot, and it means General Assembly. And a lot of them were running from table to table, seeing how many different ribbons they could collect. This was their game. I staffed the UU Hysterical Society booth whenever I could, because I'm very active with that group. And a lot of kids would run by looking for ribbons, and for many of them, the length of the ribbons they had collected were taller than they were. And about 4,000 Unitarian Universalists attended GA, both in person and virtually. Probably there was no single name tag with the same exact ribbons. And to me, this is a bit of a microcosm of our faith tradition. Some of you are new today, and maybe you're new also to Unitarian Universalism. So I actually think this is a good introduction to our faith tradition. Both the individuality and the freedom of individual worship and belief combined with this collective, collaborative covenant to build a better world. For last year's General Assembly in Portland, you remember UU St. Pete had only one in-person representative, me. So I'm thrilled that there were 7 of us in Pittsburgh and with more attending virtually. And like you, Karen, I felt that I belonged there, just as I feel I belong here at UU St. Pete. It's an exciting time to be a part of our religious movement, starting with our Afro-Latinx, cisgender, queer, fat woman UUA president, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt. As John told us, the increasing diversity of our denomination was visible through the new ministers, through the music played, through the speakers on stage, the range of session topics, and most certainly the business discussed and voted on by the delegates. This dynamic evolution of our denomination is actually historically consistent. 2 weeks ago, those of you who were here, I spoke about the history of both Unitarianism and Universalism. And you remember from the 4th century onward, I drew a distinction between inclusion and exclusion in Christianity, both of our denominations siding with inclusion. And many of you joined our church community because of that inclusive vision. Like our denomination at UU St. Pete, we are evolving from our mostly white history. And 2 years ago, we were meeting online only. Some members were leaving us. People were speaking against the 8th principle from this pulpit. Now we have over 100 people regularly. I think we have over 100 people today in the sanctuary, most Sundays. Even in the summer, our membership continues to grow, and we passed the 8th principle overwhelmingly as a congregation. We continue to learn from one another and encourage spiritual development. This Wednesday, Robert is teaching a second class. The class this Wednesday is on key learnings from spiritual leaders. We continue to hold one another when we are hurting. We got a taste of that with our joys, sorrows, and concerns. We hold one another via our covenant groups or through the work of the care committee. Our buildings and grounds team works tirelessly to care for these aging buildings, and our hospitality team works each week to provide you with coffee and snacks following worship. There's a lot of committees and a lot of teams and individuals helping us accomplish our mission. But I'll end with saying we have this incredible new board of trustees that you all elected, and I got to share some time with most of them yesterday at the UUA Southern Region Board Retreat. And UU St. Pete is not alone doing this essential work, and neither are you. I was thrilled to see Pat Fling and others talk about our work last week with FAST. We do this work alongside many other Pinellas County faith communities. Lucinda and I, while you were here, were at UU Clearwater last Sunday. Reverend Amy Kindred often joins me doing abortion clinic escort work. Further to the north, UU Tarpon Springs has a beautiful church with an amazing minister, Reverend Christina Spadi. And to the south, Reverend Fred Hammond is in Bradenton, and Reverend Jay Wolin is in Sarasota. And literally, as I'm speaking now, Reverend Jay is also recounting lessons learned from General Assembly. And later this month, he and UU Sarasota are hosting an art exhibit called Focus on Abortion. So Cynthia's right. Unitarian Universalism does indeed exist outside of St. Petersburg. When I met with some of you last week for pastoral counseling, we were not alone. Other congregants were meeting with their ministers or their covenant groups across Florida and throughout our denomination. When we learned in Robert's class on Wednesday night, we will not be alone then either. Other UU congregations are sharing and exploring their spiritual development across Florida and throughout our denomination. And when the bodily autonomy team counts the petitions delivered to our office, they are not alone, because we're one of many UU churches, including some of the ones I named, who volunteered to be hubs for the petition drive to restore abortion rights to Floridians. Probably the most moving moment, though, at General Assembly, for me personally, was when our beloved John had a seizure. It happened right in the middle of the room. At the time, there were maybe 2,000 people in that room. And that's a big conference. They could have just let the ushers handle it. But instead, they stopped. They announced from the podium that someone needed help and asked if there was a doctor who could help. And then, like a river, tens of people, was it 30 or 40 people? People started getting up and started walking. And it was like this river of people going over at him to help. And they helped him. Kelly was with him. We brought him back to his room. We took turns sitting with him, bringing him food, being with him. We were there together with him, just like we'll be there with you, just like we've been there with you. He was not alone. You're not either. Some of you are here because you felt held by this community. John was held during our General Assembly. Maybe when a loved one died, maybe when you were sick in the hospital, we were there, holding your hand. Maybe when you were told your life and your history didn't matter as a black person, we were there, beside you. Maybe when you were told you were a bad parent as a transgender person, just for being trans, we were there, speaking truth to power alongside you. like Todd and Sam just sang. Suddenly Seymour, standing beside you, here to provide you sweet understanding. Apparently a little blue tissue. I don't know where it went. I hope more of you can attend the next General Assembly in person. What ribbons will you put on your name tag? What workshops will you attend? Will you sing in the choir, the GA choir? Deb, you will. I wonder who you'll meet. I wonder who you'll help there and who will help you. I wonder how those people will end up changing your life. General Assembly taught me that lesson I need to learn every day. We are not alone. It taught me it's the perfect time to be in this denomination. And being with you today teaches me that it's the perfect time to do this essential work with you here at UU St. Pete. Let's keep doing it together. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be.
Thank you, Ben. We gathered together this morning to share of ourselves, to listen to how our friends are faring, to provide support to those in need, or get words of encouragement when we are feeling low. We form a community that recognizes that our individual journeys are strengthened when we journey together. For many of us, our time today will give us the sustenance that we need to get through the next week. Let's now offer what monetary gifts we can to ensure that we take care of this building, its people, and by extension, the broader community. In the sanctuary, the offering will now be given and received.
Please rise in body and spirit for our closing hymn, We Would Be One. It's number 318, the great hymnal.
Our to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow, a nobler world that we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us our way. As one we pledge ourselves to practice service with love and justice, strive to make us free.
We invite you to remain standing as John extinguishes our chalice. The words to our traditional chalice extinguishing are in your order of service. Online, they're in the text chat. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of courage. Those we carry in our hearts out into the world. You may be seated. John has adapted this wonderful benediction closing words from River Call, which is written by your former minister, Manish Mishra Manzetti. His picture is up on the wall, on the stairs there, and it was Manish who delivered the stirring Sunday morning worship service at our General Assembly. The book is published in Voices from the Margins, an anthology of meditations. But before we read that, we have a wonderful postlude from Aaron.
Between rocking the boat and sitting down, between stirring things up and peacefully going along,
we found ourselves here in community, each called from many different journeys, many different life paths, onto this river road.
Some came here because the rocking of the boat was too much tumult, too much uncertainty, too much pain. Some came here with questions about where the boat was going, how best to steer it, where this journey would end.
Others came here as lovers of the journey, lovers of life itself, here in front behind, beside, each a passenger, each a captain, doing the best we can.
Rest here, in your boat, with me, the river called. Listen to how I flow, the sound of the life coursing all around you.
We've let the current hold us.
We've let the current guide us.
The river that gently flowed through our souls whispers,
Go act. Now you are revived and strengthened.
So. Go act also means go drink some coffee and enjoy some food with us. Our service is over, but our work begins. We'll see you in coffee hour and next week.